intuition, logic, and heart. Best regards, and thanks for coming in to listen. Nice to have you here. This will be a subject of great interest, I hope, to people as meticulous and eager to understand as myself. Many times, in wanting to know the truth about something specific, about a situation, a place, a plan, or a person, two main types of reactions tend to take place. Firstly, there are those people who quickly come to a conclusion with complete certainty, or wait for a short polite time, only for patience to run out soon after, and take the comfortable position of assuming that they have already arrived at the answer they were looking for. This happens for a number of reasons, but they are always linked to an unwillingness to face an uncomfortable situation. One of those reasons, and the most obvious to me, is a clear lack of knowledge of how things work, how the universe, or what they call reality, itself works. And this particular reason is more commonly found on Earth, where people are accustomed to think no further, to believe that things tend to be simple and with clear, concise, concrete, quick and simple answers. Thus, the mind is trained to look for answers that quickly satisfy the doubt of the person concerned, and if an answer involves the understanding of other more complex things, the seeker of the truth in question becomes impatient, tired, and quickly withdraws his or her attention from the equation, arriving at a much simpler conclusion, which is usually accompanied by a static position in which the person will not have to change his or her mental schemes, values, habits, beliefs, or life in general. But there is also another very strong reason for this first reaction, and although it is closely related, it is not exactly the same, for it may be the case that the person who quickly dismisses possible explanations, or is unwilling to investigate and observe with patience and effort, does not do this because of a low level of consciousness, but could be someone extremely wise and of very complex and high thinking. Sometimes it can happen even to the wisest of people for two simple reasons: fear and denial. This fear or denial can come from deep exhaustion, from having faced situations in the past that pushed them to the limit. They found an equilibrium, and to get out of that equilibrium would mean returning to that state of alertness or survival, pain and disappointments, which they never want to experience again. As a quick note, if you think you belong to this group, you will always have the strength to take it all on, even your worst nightmares. It may hurt or upset you to open your eyes again and look critically and awake, but I promise you that, in time, you will think it was worth it. Don't take things for granted out of comfort, fear, or denial. Open your eyes and ears, observe, listen, grow, and rest assured that you will always get through it, and it will always be for the better. A few videos ago, I said that truth always tends to fall on its own, because of its great strength. Today I would retract to complete that concept or change it to this one. Truth has the strength to fall on its own, for those who are really willing to find it. A few minutes ago, I said that in the search for truth, there are usually two kinds of reactions. The first is the quick adoption of comfortable ideas or conclusions, as we have been talking about so far. Secondly, there is another type of reaction which, on the other hand, involves a lot more work, effort, time and interest, which causes precisely that mental and emotional wear and tear that often leads to a deep exhaustion, to the discovery of painful or uncomfortable truths, and on the other hand, to an immense growth in many, many ways. A growth in patience, in awareness, in respect, and that ends up helping you to understand everything and everyone. If you apply this to all aspects of your life, if you strive to understand how everything works at all levels and all possibilities, valuing even those you don't believe in, always ready to make mistakes and learn even more, you also end up developing new tools that help you to move, to live, to master the game. Whether you want to believe it as an artificial matrix, or simply as life itself. There are fundamental tools to take into account, or that come into play when it comes to knowing what is real and what is not. Obviously, and backing up what has been said throughout this video so far, clean logic is necessary to some extent, of course. For example, it is important to take into account one's own shadows, traumas, and insecurities, as I mentioned before, and that requires an extremely strong and well-worked self-knowledge, and a pure, totally clean, honesty with oneself. To be able to see your rejection of a situation, of what you fear or what you don't want in your life, and to put that feeling completely aside. As if you were an outsider assessing the situation in an absolutely unbiased way. This is extremely necessary and extremely important when it comes to really assessing a situation, intention, reality, or whatever, if you really want to know the truth. Because you always have the option to lock yourself in your comfortable bubble and convince yourself that things are one way. But remember, what you resist, persists. However, in observing and drawing conclusions, it is not only cold logic that comes into play, even if that logic is based on an understanding of many levels of existence. There are other very important things to take into account, and they are often the most difficult to decipher. I am talking about intuition, what your heart is screaming at you, and if you want, telepathy, an ability that you too can develop, though I would not take it as a reliable tool by any stretch of the imagination. Telepathy is, of course, a very powerful aid, but I fear it is not infallible. Not only because of the possible blocking or firewalling ability of the other individual or group of individuals, but because you yourself, your own shadows, insecurities, traumas, or ideas in general, will always be there to shape the signals you receive, whatever they are. That also plays a role here. And that is when those signals are not generated directly in you, making you see things that were not really there. And this has a special danger, and is directly related to what I recently talked about in this channel. You don't want to bury your head in the sand. No. But it is also true that, depending on the meaning you tend to give to situations, and especially by making such deductions a habit, as Marie said recently, a reality starts to take shape, and more shape, and more shape, until it becomes, from your perspective, a solid truth, to some extent even irrefutable. So, what you may eventually receive suddenly, and which you already know to locate as ideas that do not come from you, even though it really all comes from you to some extent, you can take into account, because it may be giving you valuable information, but I would not advise you to take it as something indisputable or infallible. The same is true for intuition exactly. Intuition provides highly valuable information, and should not be ignored. However, just as with telepathy, it can be influenced by your own ideas of how things should or could be, based on the reality you already know, the experience you carry with you, and the traumas and insecurities you carry with you. The true potential of both tools is only reached by being able to locate and recognize these ideas, that is to say, with a high level of self-knowledge. And behind a high level of self-knowledge, there is often an immense and hard shadow work, which depends only on oneself. Being there is a challenge, as you are probably not even aware of it yet. Show your power, and your courage. How wise and clever you can become. Come to the wisdom to find your perfect balance between each of these tools. And never silence or dismiss what the heart tells you, for it often knows the answer better than anyone else. Seek the truth, or your truth, but always with respect, self-knowledge, patience, and an open mind to continue to understand new perspectives, and an infinite universe around each thing or each world you dare to explore. A big hug, and see you next time. Za'el of Error.